So during this screencast, we are going to critically be looking and analysing the youth player development model. What this means is we'll be looking at the pros, cons, the positives and the negatives of the model in question, which today is a youth player development model. And whilst looking at this, we're going to look at it through the lens of talent development and see what key themes we can see and what it does and how it helps with talent development rather than recreational base and why it helps that. But before we can do that, we need to see what models are. Models are something that helps with progression within sport and something that can give new coaches ideas of what they need to teach in order to get the most out of their athletes. Bailey 2011 suggested this. The change from coaching the LTAD, which is the long-term athlete development model, to the ypdm, which is a youth player development model, is massive. As you're taking away that 10,000 hour rule that you can see on the screen, this means you can work on specifics of the model, in this case, so ypdm, and you can work on the abilities that is needed to help progress in the eyes of the ypdm model. This will allow children to help with the talent development because they are working on a sport-specific side of this, which is obviously what we'll later see. Working sport-specifically will help enhance the athlete's chances of becoming a master or better in that sport as they are working towards a sport, but doing it specifically. So they might be working on agility, so they might do an Illinois agility run, where it's changing direction quick for football or rugby, because you need to be able to change direction and move. Each model was created excuse me. Each model was created of an improvement of the previous model that was made. Lloyd made the improvement on the LTAD, which is the second newest one, and changed it to the ypdm. It is a positive. It is very positive, this model, as it is a very one-to-one base, and it does help more with that child development side of it and making their talent development more key. So when they're having that one-to-one, it allows children to work harder on their set ability that they need, so agility, speed, power, all that sort of thing. But it is difficult, and it makes it very difficult for all abilities to be able to use this model in a group session, as someone might be a little bit older, going through something differently, and maybe progressing better than, say, another child. So it does make it hard, and that is where this critique is really based, like around the one-to-one side of it. But what is a youth play development model? This model is based on the chronological age and there's a systematic approach when progression in sport. It is a very clear plan on what is needed to work on and when they are taking part in sport. But it doesn't have anything to say where they should be at. There's no data to be able to compare or reference to in order to make sure your athletes or children are where they need to be. So when we're trying to do this, we're basing it off what we already know, where we think. But this could be completely different. If I'm a new coach, I could be saying that a child needs to lift 100 kg by the age of 16, work on his power. And in reality, I could be miles away and it's only 50 kg. So I feel like if you're a new coach, you need that guidance, and this is what I feel like this model's lacking a little bit. Even though it tells you where you need to work on, it doesn't tell you how, not as such how, but more of the fact of where they need to be working to. So agility, can they make it through this agile course in under 10 seconds? Something like that. But on the positive side to this model, it starts at a very young age. As you'll see later on in the tables, it starts from the years of 2 all the way to 21. And so we're just looking at the adolescent side of it, so which is the 12 to 16 area. This model also looks at PHV, which is classed as peak height velocity. And this is a fastest rate of growth happens in a biological factor, suggesting that this model is more than just an age. So that's why it's so different to everyone else's, because it looks at 2 different genders and the way they are built and the way they are designed, if you'd like, biologically, because everybody's different. but then that also leaves a lot of gaps, and I'll get into that further on. So the model stands out from all other models as a male and female based idea of where they should be, and they are not the same when you examine the two models. The main difference you will see in this is when they go to the different stages of life. This shows when PHV, peak height velocity, takes place, and we can see it much earlier in females than males. This can be solved by looking at the fact women mature earlier than men and suggests they go into adolescence earlier. Although this diagram shows different stages, it's very difficult for everyone to feel included in these diagrams. Are based on what should happen in the human body at what age. It is very clear to see that, but this is not the case in real life coaching or teaching. Every child is different. Every child will mature earlier or later, and this is just based off what we know should happen. So in reality, does this model have too many flaws to be able to use? But on the positive side, it's telling you the best time to go from fundamental movements, so just basic jumping, running, just learning it, to right, actually we're going to learn how to jump but head the ball at the same time in football, or jump and make a shot in basketball. So it's telling you where and when to switch, and that is a positive to where you need to be. But it also goes in a bit of depth for saying how structured it needs to be. Does it need to be, right, you can have a bit of fun time because we're younger, you can go and run around and play with your friends. But then as you're getting older, it's more of drills, and that is what this is all about. So as you can see, the bigger the font size, is where Lloyd believes you should be working on more or focusing on more at that point in time. So as you can see, as they get to the age of adolescent, they need to be working on agility, speed a lot more earlier on than they do later on. Power and strength need to be able to be maintained throughout this, hypertrophy and muscular endurance and things like that. So as you can see, the little they're writing, the least important is, the bigger they're writing, the more important it is, due to what this model suggests. But again, every child progresses at a different rate. So this model, again, is good, but they all progress differently. So what are the strengths? The strengths of this model is that it helps with the one-to-one. It gives child that opportunity alone with the coach or teacher to be able to ask questions, express themselves in a different way. And that one-to-one care will allow children to have a better option and a better chance of progression to the next stage or the next chapter within sport, their chosen sport as well. While using this model of coaching, it uses the 5 C's, which is commitment, communication, concentration, control, and confidence. But this is all, again, very key to the one-to-one sessions, because you've got to be committed to it. You've got to be able to communicate, keep the concentration, keep control, and keep the confidence. And this will help and nurture players. A lot of players do need this, but this model also gives adolescents a lot of satisfaction, because it said, so this week we're working on speed, so you have to be able to get to a certain area in this amount of time. So you've got 10 seconds to run 100 meters, we could say, and it gives them a sense of purpose. And if they do it, great. If they don't, we can show improvement. What can be improved? This model doesn't really show a special educational needs side to it, and it is hard to be able to base any model around special educational needs. So how do we look at that? How do we change it? So maybe we need to make it so that it's not just based on peak height velocity or maturation, because if you've got a psychological disease or a mental disease, you might mature a lot later than someone else, and so we need to look into that in the way that it goes. This model only uses fully qualified coaches as well, which can be an issue to the availability of people, of the coaches, and how available it is to other members of the public and other athletes. If they're unable to get into a session, then that leaves them behind, so everyone can feel left out. But again, I have said that this model needs to be improved by showing a set data and things like that, but these are the main bits I feel like I picked out on the special educational needs and fully qualified coaches which are needed. So what key themes? So this model looks at the relative age effects, and So this looks at the relative age effect and how they progress through the ages and how they get to a certain age to work on something else. And it also looks on appropriate training needed, so being able to switch between different areas of it needed to be worked on: agility, speed, which Halson found out in 2014 that the way this works is helps prevent burnout and fatigue. So in summary, this model moves away from an athlete-centered approach, and it looks at long-term development and physical abilities in all young people. But it does make it difficult in a group session. It focuses on FMS in the start of the child's age and works up to SSS, sport-specific skills, to help progress and nurture children into the sport they are willing to play. This model does need a lot of one-to-one sport for athletes, I think, and that means it's not very inclusive. But that is its summary. They're the references, and thank you.